Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you are, on air or online. We're on local here at TV Santa Barbara. If you're watching us here in Santa Barbara, California, or if you're watching us from around the world at goodlifetelevision.org, we're so grateful to have you. 9 million views on Facebook last time we checked. So thank you, and we're appreciative of your support. You can follow us. You can follow on goodlifetelevision.org. You can see the full interviews, great people, all walks of life. And you can also watch what we call power clips, where we kind of break up those interviews into some of the great moments. So we love it. We love you. We're so glad you're here. And I'm really excited about my guest today. Tami Barnett is with me. Tami is, first and foremost, a high school friend. That's not why she's here, actually, but she's here because of her wonderful work. But she is a high school friend, so yeah. It's been a long time.
Go Padres.
Carmel High Padres. That's what we were. Class of 93, class of 95, so we were friends. She was part of our church, and so we have a lot of memories. We were just reminiscing a little bit, but since then, we're going to talk about whatever it's been, 27 years since.
I'd like to pretend it's less, but
yeah, let's just whatever. We're keeping it real. But in the 27 years since, Tami graduated from Pepperdine, went on to Pepperdine Law School, Caruso Law School at Pepperdine, and she's just doing some fantastic work. She's done really great work as an attorney, and then she started something called Raising Hope, which we're going to talk about with a focus on kids coming out of the foster system. So there's just a lot to talk about. But the first thing I read here was you grew up with a passion for helping families become whole and for protecting vulnerable children. Yeah. Has that always just kind of been in your DNA?
Yeah, it really has. I really thought about it senior year, actually, of high school. I had an illness that kept me out of school, and I kind of reevaluated everything, and I was really praying about where the Lord wanted me. And it just came to me that, families are such a key to anything in society, right? Yeah. We learn everything we know in a family. We learn how to relate to others. We learn how to work hard. All of these things happen, and family is such a treasure. Yeah. And if your family is broken, it really impacts your life. And so if I really wanted to make a difference in this world, it needed to start with the family.
Yeah. We don't think about that sometimes, but the family is kind of the building block of society. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is where it all starts.
Yeah.
And so how that goes has a big impact. I mean, that's what sends out all the people, right? Yeah. That unit.
It does.
So it's so critical. So take us back, coming out of law school, where'd you go first?
After law school, I actually was working for a foster youth group called the Independent Living Skills Program. So I was just a case manager. I wasn't even practicing. And that was fine with me because, as I said, my goal was to help families become whole and help children feel protected and safe and loved. And it didn't matter if it was in the legal field or not. So I was working for this program called the Independent Living Skills Program, which is a federally mandated program to teach youth who are aging out of foster care life skills, basic life skills, hard skills, soft skills, and I was doing that and loving it. But then, as happens with nonprofits, we lost our contract. And at that point, someone in my office said, my lawyer needs a lawyer to work for her. So I started going into family law, which I did not love. Family law is really not about preserving families. It's really about helping them dissolve or split apart. And that was really hard for me. It's something that we need really great people doing, so it's a good field to go into if you want to. But for me, it wasn't for me. It was just it weighed on me too much, too depressing. And then from there, I worked for a nonprofit that worked with low and no income clients with things like landlord-tenant issues and conservatorships and guardianships, and just helping them with whatever they needed legally. Yeah. Which was fine. It was an okay thing to do, and I got a lot of experience. Really, really happy to have done that. But I really longed to work in the children's court. I had an internship in law school at the children's court in East LA, which is Edelman Children's Court. It's where they have all of the dependency cases for the county, pretty much. And so I applied, and I started working there for the Children's Law Center of California. Huh. And I loved it. I thought, that's what I'm going to do forever. I loved representing children. My clients were 0 to 21 years old, and we advocated for them in every area. You know, should they be removed from their parents' home? Are they getting visits? Are they getting the medical care and the dental care they need? Are they getting the units they need to graduate from high school? Are they visiting with their siblings? Should they be reunited with their family? All of those things were part of the advocacy that we did, and that they still continue to do.
Advocacy is such a powerful concept, standing for somebody, you know, the advocate. I love that word. And you know, it's interesting about law in the legal world. If you're charged with a crime, you get an attorney, you know, but on all these other things related to family law, children, and all these issues, it's hard to pay. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, there's a gap there, isn't there?
So in family law, yeah, you don't get assigned an attorney, but the good thing is in what we do is just under the guise of juvenile law, you do actually get an attorney. If they're going to remove your child from you, you get an attorney assigned to you. Yeah, you can also hire your own private counsel, but you get an attorney assigned to you. And then it's kind of cool because everyone has an attorney. So the children have an attorney. That's what I did. Each parent has their own attorney, and even the social worker has an attorney. And then we all get into the courtroom and kind of advocate for our clients, and it should all be around what's in the best interest of the children.
Yeah.
And the person who really gets to advocate for that is the children's attorney. And so it's a really unique way to be, and I loved doing it.
Wow. And let's talk about Raising Hope. Yeah. So you do this, you're involved in a private practice now, right? Yeah. But you're also running and leading something called Raising Hope. Tell us what Raising Hope, what's the vision?
Yeah, so Raising Hope came out of when I was representing clients in children's court. A lot of my clients wanted to participate in extracurricular activities. They had goals. They wanted to go to college. They might have wanted to get braces, right? And none of those things were paid for. They weren't easily paid for, at least. You had to really dig for which nonprofit was still around, which had the funding to do it. And so we started Raising Hope. We started an event to raise money, not intending to start a nonprofit, to pay for those things that are not covered in any other way. But as we went along and we found a great need for those items, we ended up incorporating into a nonprofit. And so that's how Raising Hope was created. And Raising Hope, the vision for Raising Hope is just to meet unmet needs for youth who are in foster care and transitioning out of foster care. So we serve 0 to 26-year-olds, and we assessed the community and talked about what are the real needs here for these kids that are aging out. There are many, but we found that people was the main need, because unlike around the world where we have international orphans whose parents may have passed away or not able to care for them, they need basic shelter, clothing, food. But in the United States, we have systems that care for that. They're most likely going to be sheltered, cared for. They're going to have 3 meals a day. They're going to get to go to school. But it doesn't take the place of a family. Like you said earlier, family is where all of the good stuff happens. Yeah. And so having a loving, stable, committed person in their life is a close second to having a family member. Someone who can be their person when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're scared, when they need advice. And so our mentor program was created. Wow. And then through the mentoring program, we realized that there were a lot of just basic life skills that were lacking for our youth. And there comes back to my first job out of law school, was working in the independent living skills program. And so now it came full circle. Raising Hope has that contract in our county to offer those life skills classes. So we have our own life skills classes, and we have those as well. And we serve 15 to 26-year-olds. We teach them about, budgeting and credit and banking, how to set goals for college and career, how to provide great customer service, how to check your oil and change a tire, right? And how to cook a healthy meal, things like that we talk about. We also talk about relationships. How do you end up in a healthy relationship where you don't just fall into a relationship? You're intentional about what you're looking for, what you're interested in, what is a yes, what is a no, how to make those decisions. So we do those life skills classes as well. And then this year, we began doing a Housing Navigator program. Housing, especially in California, especially in Southern California, is difficult for any of us. If any of us were looking for a home right now, we would be struggling to find one that's affordable. And so you can imagine youth who are aging out of foster care really cannot find housing. And they have no credit, no cosigner. And so they come to us through a referral from a social worker. We help them find housing, and then we help pay for that housing. Because sometimes they need deposits that are like 3 times the rent just to get their foot in the door. And so we help with that.
Wow. We were talking about the Turner Foundation has the thing called the Foundation House that if you don't know about, you do now. But the Foundation House is thinking along those lines. And Tammy, before we came on, said, "We want to do one in Ventura?" I said, "Well, maybe." But this concept, housing first, and the need is great for the demographic that you're serving. So housing is something that we're thinking about. But talk about a little bit about that dream, because what you're thinking about related to housing in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I love what the Turner Foundation is doing for these kids, just giving them a place to go that's safe and reliable and affordable, and a nice little passing through until they can get to their future. And that's what we're hoping to do in Ventura County, and then potentially replicate it. Because what we're finding is, in 2012, the state of California passed AB 12, which allows youth to stay in foster care until their 21st birthday, which is great, because before that it was 18, right?
Yeah.
18 years old, and they were kind of on their own. Now, as long as they're working or going to school, they can stay in foster care. It's called extended foster care. They can stay in until their 21st birthday.
Oh.
But what happens is sometimes in those 3 years where they're getting their checks regularly, and they've got a place to live in transitional housing, they're kind of lay back. They don't prepare for that next level. And so that's when we get them, when they're like, "I'm turning 21 in 2 weeks. I got to be out of my housing. I don't have a job. I have no plan." And so the conversation needs to begin sooner, or we need to find housing that goes a little bit beyond that. And so our dream through this Housing Navigator program is now to have some kind of renovated motel or apartment unit with 6 to 10 units where we can actually house youth who are in transition from the transition. So a little bit longer, where we're more intentional during that time about finding a job, setting a budget, setting goals, having mentors, and kind of transitioning into adulthood that way. And then the secondary benefit is that many of our youth are already coupled up, and many of them have children. And so the shelters that are out in the community, which are wonderful, they often would split a family up. And these youth have already been split from their families. They've already endured so much trauma that we would love to keep them together as a family unit. And so being able to go into an apartment that's nothing fancy, but very simple, provides for their basic needs for 6 to 9 months, maybe 12 max, where we can actually be speaking into their lives and planning with them, is the dream.
So good. There's a lot of different directions I can go from there. Mentoring is huge. I think everybody should have a mentor. And I think everybody should be a mentor. I've always, we moved down to Dallas for 10 years, and when I got there, I was like, I need somebody over me, I need somebody under me. But the over me was the more important one. But having that mentor, having a guide, having somebody that speaks in, obviously parents can do that, and that's powerful, but also just you're standing in the gap again for, if there isn't the parent, if there isn't somebody, you can speak that stuff. When you're talking, I'm thinking about, the scripture about just meeting needs. When I was thirsty, you gave me a cup of water. When I was a stranger, you took me in. When I was naked, you clothed me. It's so basic in terms of loving. And practically speaking, that's really what you're doing, isn't it? I mean, it's boots on the ground. I heard you on the phone. I heard you text messaging somebody before we came on, trying to meet a car payment, right? Wasn't that what?
A young man's car was repossessed.
And so you're stepping in and saying, we'll pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll pay, but we also want to know more. We don't want to just write the check. We want to know, can this young man maintain his car payments? Is he making enough? If not, let's help him get there. We don't want to just write the check, right? And so, I mean, that's what I think a parent would do. I think about, I remember very vividly being in law school, and my roommate and I, this was before they had cell phone plans. You know, cell phones were kind of new, and you had to pay per minute. And so my roommate and I both got like $800 cell phone bills. And I don't know why we both did that month, but I remember sitting in the living room floor and crying. And then after we cried, we both called our dads, and we're like, "You, Daddy," which is the word you use when you need something from, you know, you're a dad, so you know. So like, "Daddy, I don't know how this happened, but I have this bill. I can't pay it. Could you please help me?" And then after much lecturing and lessons by Dad, he then paid the bill, right? And helped us out of a jam that we learned from it. But we made a mistake, and we needed that support. And so really what Raising Hope does is tries to step into that role of, you know, we don't want to just be a paycheck for you.
Yeah.
We really want to be that more parental figure with the guidance and the direction and the support. But thankfully, thanks to our amazing donors, we have funding also to help pay for some of those things that really, for our youth, it is the difference between housing and homelessness. Like 90% of the time. And if they are evicted from housing, that eviction then does not allow them to find subsequent housing, and they have no one to co-sign for them. And so it becomes this trickle down, which then ends up with a large homeless population for our former foster youth.
Makes sense. Or if they commit a crime and they make a mistake, then that affects housing, job. So it's like a domino effect. And it's like a cycle, a spiral. How do you get out of it?
Exactly.
You need help.
You do.
You know.
And you need the guidance before you commit the crime, you know. So we have youth who will call and, you know, maybe they're testing positive for drugs when they're applying for a job. And it's just, they don't even know. They don't know what choices to make, right? And so being able to not show your judgment, just kind of stay calm and hear the issue, and then step into that and be able to give wisdom without judgment. And what did we learn? You know, on the way up here, I was speaking with a youth who thought she had a job in the bag. She thought she had this new job, so she quit her old job and didn't give any notice and didn't make that plan, hadn't locked in the second job. Well, you can probably guess what happened. That job fell through. And so now she's struggling, and she's very resourceful, so she's found another job, which is great. But we had a little talk on the way up here about how to give notice and how subsequent employers respect that, because it shows that you're going to respect them, and how never to give up one job before you have the next one and things like that. So they have no idea most of the time unless someone has taught them. It's not their fault, you know. So that's what we try to do.
So good. And if somebody wanted to, if they're watching this and they wanted to mentor, they can contact you and get an opportunity to mentor.
Absolutely. There are applications on our website. We have quarterly trainings, and we do ask for a year-long commitment for our mentors, because our youth have had so much turnover in their life that by month 3, a lot of times our mentor is the longest running person who's been in their life, which is crazy to think about. But that's why we ask for a commitment. And then, of course, we dream that they'll be in relationship forever.
Adoption is a beautiful thing. Talk about adoption, and you've been around this for a long time now. Talk about adoption just in general.
So one thing about adoption that I think is kind of unique, and a lot of people don't get this, especially in the faith community, but adoption is always bittersweet. It's always something broken that was not necessarily how it was supposed to be. But something so beautiful has come in to create something new. And that's why I love adoption, because it is so much a parallel to our walk with Christ, right? He has adopted us despite what brokenness has happened in our past. So adoption is so beautiful, and I love being part of that. I do that sort of like on the side, and it's been really neat. One of the things that I think people don't realize is that there are such thing as adult adoptions. And so a lot of times our youth who are in foster care, when they turn 18, they're like, well, that's it. You know,
I don't have a family.
I don't have a family, and I'm never going to have one until I have one of my own. But that's really not true, because many of our youth have someone in their lives, maybe their mentor or some other kind of person who's cared for them or taught them, that they look at like a parent. And you can actually make it official when they're an adult, get a new birth certificate, the whole nine,
Really?
and then form that family. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it doesn't matter how old you are. I did an adult adoption for a friend of mine who was, I think she was like 7 months pregnant with her third child. And she was never in foster care, probably should have been, but she had been taken in by a couple that just loved her. And then she called mom and dad, and they were never officially her parents, just due to financial reasons and other things. And so we finalized that adoption, and just that like completion of that family and that peace that came upon her was so beautiful.
Wow. Is that expensive?
No, adult adoption is a really simple process, actually. If you're married, your spouse has to agree, and then, of course, the adopting parents agree and you agree, and that's about it. You don't even have to terminate your birth parents' rights. If you want it and they want it, we can make it happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
This could be my quickest path to grandfatherhood.
There you go.
I'm excited about being a grandfather.
Yeah, I'm excited about being a grandmother too, because my kids are just entering the teen stage.
Oh, you are?
And they tell me that like grandparent is like amazing, being a grandparent. So I'm like, great, let's just get to that.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready to be out of teenagerville.
That's not very encouraging.
I've had 4.
Yes. Yeah.
No, you're going into that?
Yeah, my kids are 12 and 13.
Yeah, we should pause in prayer for you right now. Join us, will you? For Tammy. No, no, it's not. But it's just tricky.
Yeah.
It's harder than when the kids are little.
Yeah, I'm finding that.
They're like people.
Yeah.
Like when they're little, they just run around. You're trying to establish a perimeter, keep them alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they get to that point, they're like people with like
they have their
strong
own thoughts.
opinions.
Yeah.
Like,
I did not authorize this thought, this
right.
path, but you're going to go down it.
Right.
And I have to just watch you. Yeah.
There's a lot of prayer going on in that room right over there, I can tell you. I love when they asked you if you had an autobiography, what would it be called, and you said, "Don't underestimate me."
Oh.
I love that, by the way, because you're a doer.
Yeah.
You're a dreamer, but you're a doer. Which
Yeah.
that's kind of what I sensed after reading this. That you have passion, you have a heart that came early in high school. You knew that, and then you're putting it into practice. You're doing it.
Yeah.
What are the challenges of the work that you're doing, just personally? Because I've been in a little similar path, but what are the challenges? Because not everybody can do this.
Yeah, so there's personal challenges and professional challenges. I'll start with the personal. Balancing as a mom, balancing my family and my husband, my husband's needs, my kids' needs with the needs of the youth that I'm serving. I really feel like I'm a mom to like 100 youth, and it's great preparation for me for when my kids get into the teenage and then post-teen years. I really feel that I'll be ready for that after the work I've been doing, but I really don't want to neglect my family. And sometimes they do feel neglected because I'm doing this work. So that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And then professionally, the biggest challenge is just learning the ropes. I'm a lawyer by trade, right? I'm not a business person. I'm not a non-profiteer, they call you.
Right.
I am now. I'm learning it. I'm learning development and fundraising. I can wire electrical outlets and get it all ready for an event. I can kind of do a lot of weird things. But technically, when I started Raising Hope, especially by the way, I should mention that I started it with my friend Dawn Groom. She and I started it together, and she's a nurse and I'm a lawyer, and neither of us knew what we were doing, but we had the heart for something and the vision for something. And so trying to figure out all of those technical things, and also really when you're parenting 100 kids or so, trying to make those tough calls. Yeah. When do we say, yeah, we're going to cover that, or when do we draw a hard line? Because the consequences are so great for these kids. Yeah. And so trying to set healthy boundaries for my family and professionally is just kind of tough in this world, because your heart is big. You want to serve every youth, and you want to do everything you can to just love them and give them what they want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not always good for their long term,
Right.
because they've got to learn some hard lessons like I did growing up.
Yeah.
So.
It's amazing. When I think about adoption, you were talking about it. I mean, it is, and I know I've had a lot of friends that have adopted, and it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of hard parts to it. And on the flip side, it's like all things new.
Yeah.
It's something new.
Yeah.
And I just think something beautiful can be born out of the ashes of brokenness.
Yes.
That can blow our mind.
Yeah.
If we believe that, you
Yeah.
know. The scripture talks about beauty from ashes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, man, this is just an ash pile.
Yeah.
But what could it be?
Yeah.
And I think adoption and the way you're thinking about mentoring and standing in this gap, I just think so many new things can emerge. You know?
Yeah, and when you're talking about that too, I think about these kids who have gone through the worst atrocities, the most horrific scenarios growing up, and I think about how so many of them they break these cycles. You know, our intern last semester, she's graduating this spring, and she's the first in her family to graduate from college.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is beauty from ashes.
Right.
You know, and I think
Yes.
any youth who has a child and does not repeat the cycles of abuse, you know, they care for their child, they love their child, they protect them. That's beauty from ashes.
Right.
And all of these things are capable. They just need like a little watering, a little sun, and
Right.
that's the people, the community of people,
Yes.
be it a family, an adoption, or like a pseudo family through mentoring and all of those things. It's really the community of believers that can come alongside. It doesn't have to be believers, really. We use everybody, anybody, and everybody can love a kid.
Yeah.
But definitely coming together as a community, and that's really key.
That's
That's
so
everything.
inspiring. Beauty from ashes. Love is in the air. This is good life. Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is awesome.
Nice to see you
What
again.
is your website?
RaisingHOPE.org.
RaisingHOPE.org. So check it out. Love to have people participate, but thanks for everything you're doing.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.